I never imagined that a single decision could fracture my world forever. My name is Levi, and I was 17 when I found myself clutching a tattered messenger bag on the polished marble platform of Shinjuku Station in Tokyo. My mother, Serena Nakamura, stepped away toward the ticket gates as though she were embarking on a leisurely day trip, her tailored trench coat billowing and her heels clicking with confident rhythm. She didn't look back once, not at the son she'd given the world, but had evidently decided she no longer needed. I froze as the roar of arriving trains swallowed me. Commuters in sleek business attire flowed past, heads bowed to their glowing screens, completely oblivious to the boy standing alone. My heart pounded so fiercely I thought I might collapse onto the platform. The bright overhead lights and screens flashing neon advertisements mocked my despair. Serena had won a coveted guest spot on a major news broadcast, and she'd whisked me here under the pretense of spending quality time before whisking off to interview a visiting diplomat. Instead, she abandoned me like a disposable camera left on a bench. My breaths came in rapid bursts. I fingered the strap of my bag. Inside, my only possessions, a faded photograph of my father, a handful of coins, and 2 notebooks filled with my scribbled poetry. I had precisely 23 yen left in my pocket. No ticket home, no plan, no mother. I closed my eyes and remembered the voice I hadn't heard in years, the one she denounced as weak and undesirable, my father's. He had vanished from our lives when I was a toddler. Serena claimed he was a failed entrepreneur who fled his responsibilities, that he never cared for either of us. I had internalized her words, believing that my father had abandoned me for good. But as the station's loudspeaker crackled to life, announcing the next departure, I felt an urgent flicker of defiance. I would find him. My trembling fingers unlocked my phone. It powered on with a sluggish whir. I scrolled through old messages until I found the thread, the barest hint of a number. My pulse thundered in my ears as I tapped call. The line rang once, twice, and then a calm male voice answered. "Levi," he said, each syllable resonating with warmth I had almost forgotten. "Dad," I whispered, tears blurring the screen. "Please come get me." Silence followed, broken only by the distant rumble of trains. Then, with measured calm, he asked, "Where are you?" I rattled off the station name and platform number. His reply was a promise I couldn't yet believe. "Stay where you are, I'll be there." Hours passed like frozen seconds. I perched on a hard bench, wrapping my arms around myself against the chill of dread and hope intertwined. I watched station staff sweep through, attendants in crisp uniforms offering help to lost tourists, but none asked the boy whose eyes were glassy with tears if he needed assistance. The station clock ticked inexorably onward, and I felt every minute stretch into an eternity. Then, as dusk settled over the city and the station lights gleamed like stars trapped indoors, my ears caught an unfamiliar hum. A sleek black helicopter descended gracefully onto the nearby helipad, its rotors slicing the air with a soft thunder. Passengers disembarked through the open door, suits, polished shoes, discreet earpieces, until finally a tall figure in a tailored charcoal suit emerged. His hair was flecked with silver at the temples, his posture regal yet unassuming. He scanned the platform until his gaze landed squarely on me. "Levi," he said, his voice a steady anchor in the storm. I leapt to my feet. He closed the distance in 2 strides and enveloped me in an embrace that felt like a lifeline. I buried my face in his crisp shirt, inhaling the faint scent of cedar and something uniquely his. Tears spilled freely as I clung to him, the tremor in my legs finally giving way. "I'm so sorry," I managed to choke out against his chest. "I never stopped." He pressed a gentle finger to my lips. "Shh," he soothed. "You're safe now." Under the station's flashing lights and the watchful eyes of uniformed guards, he led me toward the helicopter. Each step carried me further from the boys Serena left behind and closer to a world I'd only glimpsed in dreams, one of safety, of certainty, of love untainted by abandonment. As we climbed aboard, I surveyed the plush leather seats and the panoramic windows that framed Tokyo's glittering skyline. My father took the seat beside me, his hand resting reassuringly on my shoulder. I watched the station recede beneath us as the helicopter lifted into the night, my fear dissolving into the wind. For the first time in years, my heart was still. I sat up straighter and met his gaze. "What happens now?" I asked. He smiled, a soft curve that held both pride and promise. "Now we go home, and I'm not letting you go again." I nodded, letting his words settle into me like sunlight after a storm. The city lights blurred into a tapestry beneath us, and I realized I had a choice: remain the abandoned child I'd believed myself to be, or become the young man my father always saw in me. As the helicopter hummed toward our future, I closed my eyes and felt, deep in my bones, that I was finally coming home. The helicopter settled onto the private helipad of Rokugawa Heights, ending its gentle thrum with a soft sigh. My father, Masaru Hayashi, led me down the fold-out stairs, each step revealing more of the sprawling estate perched atop a verdant hill. Below, the neon glare of Tokyo's cityscape was muted by distance, replaced by manicured gardens, stone lanterns, and the quiet hush of cedar trees. The air here felt different, cooler, richer, threaded with the scent of pine and something infinitely reassuring. I descended last, eyes wide, clutching my worn messenger bag as though it were the only thing bridging my past and this overwhelming present. Masaru paused at the bottom step and turned to me. His silhouette, strong and composed, reminded me of a mountain, steadfast, immovable, and protective. He offered a gentle bow, formal yet tender, and I gave a shaky nod. "Welcome home, Levi," he said, voice low and steady. "This is your sanctuary now." A black-suited attendant approached, head bowed. "Sir, Master Hayashi, I have arranged hot green tea and mochi for Master Levi in the drawing room, as you requested." The attendant's tone was crisp, respectful, an undercurrent of genuine warmth flickering behind disciplined courtesy. It struck me then that this world was governed by honor as much as by power. Masaru inclined his head. "Thank you, Hiroshi." He turned back to me. "Come, let us speak." We walked down a long covered veranda toward a pair of sliding shoji doors etched with abstract cranes. Inside, the drawing room was a serene tableau. Tatami mats, low lacquered tables, and paper lanterns diffusing a mellow amber light. A small alcove displayed a simple ikebana arrangement, white chrysanthemums and sprigs of cedar, reflecting his understated taste. In one corner, a low bookshelf held a handful of leather-bound volumes, philosophy, poetry, and a single dog-eared family photo album. I followed him to a corner seat cushioned in indigo brocade. Hiroshi knelt before us, placing a tray with steaming tea and delicately wrapped sweets. Every gesture was precise, respectful, but for me, it all felt astonishingly personal, as though these rituals were crafted to soothe the heart rather than merely uphold protocol. Masaru gestured toward the tea. "Drink! It will calm your nerves." I lifted the porcelain cup and inhaled the fragrant steam. Sipping, I felt warmth unfurl in my chest. My body relaxed for the first time since waking on that platform. Hiroshi withdrew politely, leaving us alone. Masaru studied me with those deep brown eyes. "You must be hungry." I managed a small nod. I didn't eat much in the station." My voice trembled with shame. He offered a half-smile. Understandable. He reached into his inner coat pocket and produced an embossed invitation, an acorn-brown card with gold lettering. It read, "Welcome, Levi Hayashi. Dinner at the Kogane Pavilion, 7 o'clock. "Tonight," he said, "I have arranged a meal beside the koi pond. It will be just us and the sound of water. You can choose anything on the menu." His calm assurance settled like a blanket. I blinked, hardly able to form words. "But He held up a hand gently. "I wish only to give you the comforts you were denied. You earned them simply by being my son. No apologies necessary." I swallowed. "Thank you." The tremor in my throat betrayed how overwhelming this generosity felt. My past taught me to shrink, never to trust such kindness. Yet here, across the low table, Masaru's expression was free of pity. Instead, it was an open invitation to belong. He leaned forward. "Levi, I have already begun preparations to ensure your well-being. I have spoken with the headmaster of Sakura International Academy. Your enrollment is secured. You will have tutors to help you catch up. You will live here in comfort. And I have instructed our legal counsel to begin the process of severing any financial ties your mother might claim. She will not, cannot reach you again, not even in court." At the mention of Serena, a jagged ache cut through me. I clenched my fists until my nails bit into my palms to keep the tears from tasting my tongue. I whispered, "She can't get me back." He inclined his head. "Number I have the necessary documents and testimony. She will lose any maintenance claims. Your trust fund is protected." He paused, letting the finality of his words sink in. "You are mine to protect now, and I will not fail you again." A gentle breeze drifted in through the lattice window panels, carrying the scent of night-blooming jasmine. I closed my eyes, letting the simple beauty of this moment embed itself in my memory. My father's steady presence, the soft glow of lantern light, the distant murmur of a hidden waterfall. I realized I was beginning to trust, truly trust, for the first time in my life. I opened my eyes to find him watching me with a kind, curious tilt of his head. "How do you feel, Levi?" I set down the cup, meeting his gaze at last. My voice was quiet, but certain. I feel safe. He smiled as though that single word fulfilled every hope he'd carried for me over years of absence. Then tomorrow, we begin anew. You will learn what it means to be cherished. And one day, when you are ready, you will decide what kind of man you wish to become. I nodded, the weight of past abandonment dissolving in the promise of a future I dared to imagine. I want that. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand, an unspoken vow passing between us. In that tranquil room, beneath the watchful cranes of the shoji screens, I understood that I was no longer the lost boy of Shinjuku Station. I was my father's son, reborn, unafraid, ready to step into the life he had secured for me. Morning light filtered through the paper windows of my new bedroom, painting the tatami mats in soft gold. I blinked awake to the distant chime of a temple bell, its deep tone resonating across the hillside like a heartbeat. I lay still for a moment, breathing in the quiet serenity of Rokugawa Heights, so unlike the sterile hum of Shinjuku Station or the stale fluorescent glow of the airport terminal where my abandonment first felt real. For the first time in as many years as I could count, I did not wake with a knot of dread in my chest. Instead, I felt a gentle flutter of anticipation, as though my heart was stretching after a long slumber. I swung my legs over the edge of the low futon and sat up, my bare feet brushing against the cool straw of the tatami. A lacquered tray stood by the alcove, a porcelain teacup, a small plate of pickled plums, and a lacquer bowl of steaming rice topped with toasted sesame seeds. Everything was arranged with quiet precision, the craftsmanship of centuries reflected in every curve and lacquer sheen. I realized I was trembling, partly from the remnants of sleep, partly from the thrill of beginning a new day in a world that felt entirely my own. After breakfast, I dressed in the uniform Masaru had selected for me. Crisp white shirt, navy blazer embroidered with the school's emblem, and tidy grey trousers. The fabric felt unfamiliar but dignified, like armour woven from possibility and promise. I glanced at my reflection in the low dressing mirror, my dark hair slightly tousled, my eyes clear and alert, and a faint line of uncertainty on my brow. I smoothed my blazer shoulders, determined to face this day without flinching. At precisely 8 o'clock, Hiroshi appeared at my door. He bowed, a gentle rustle of fabric confirming his readiness. "Master Levi, the sedan awaits. Your father will meet you at the school entrance." I nodded, heart pounding as I followed him out into the cool morning air. The driveway snaked down the hillside, flanked by stone lanterns and sculpted bonsai. At the bottom, a sleek black sedan idled, its engine purring like a contented cat. I paused beside the car, taking in the sight of my father standing at the edge of the road, his charcoal suit impeccable, his posture relaxed but alert. He offered a warm smile the moment our eyes met. "Ready?" he asked, voice soft. I inhaled deeply and nodded. "Yes." He placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Remember, Levi, everyone here cares about your future. Trust them as you trust me." His words settled over me like a protective cloak. I climbed into the back seat, and he joined me moments later. The car glided onto the main road, weaving through emerald hills before emerging onto the bustling avenue leading to Sakura International Academy. As we neared the tall iron gates adorned with a bronze phoenix crest, I felt a flutter of nerves again. A cluster of students gathered on the sidewalk, some in conversation, others scrolling smartphones, a few tossing frisbees to pass the time. They seemed oblivious to us as we pulled up, but when the driver opened my door, heads turned. I stepped out into a brief hush, the weight of so many eyes pressing in, but my father's presence was steady beside me, an anchor in the swirl of uncertainty. He gave me one final nod before turning to enter the school grounds. "I'll wait in my car right here. I'll be back at 3 for you." His tone was both casual and solemn, an unspoken promise that my return would be just as safe as my arrival. I squared my shoulders and walked past him, letting the iron gate click shut behind me. A uniformed porter greeted me by name, "Master Hayashi, welcome back," and offered to escort me to the administrative office. I followed, every footstep echoing on the cobblestone pathway, heart hammering with the thrill of the unknown. Inside the main building, tall windows flooded the foyer with light. Portraits of distinguished alumni lined the walls, diplomats, scholars, artists, men and women who had walked these halls and gone on to shape the world. A hush of quiet activity permeated the air. Students reviewing notes, teachers conferring in hushed tones, the soft tapping of laptop keyboards. It felt majestic, almost sacred, and I found myself both intimidated and exhilarated. The porter led me to a polished mahogany desk where the head of admissions, Mrs. Akiko Sato, awaited. She was a petite woman with sharp eyes, softened by a genuine, welcoming smile. "Levi, we have your schedule prepared. Languages first period, mathematics second, then physical education, followed by lunch and literature. Your tutor, Ms. Minami, will meet you in the library at 10:30. Your homeroom teacher, Mr. Park, looks forward to introducing you to the class at 11. I nodded, scanning the printed schedule. Everything was laid out as though my integration into this community had been anticipated long before I arrived. "Thank you," I said, voice steady. She handed me a name tag embroidered in silver thread and a sleek black laptop, my own for the term, fully configured. "If you need anything at all, Levi, please don't hesitate to ask." Her warmth felt genuine, as though she spoke not out of obligation, but from a true desire to help me succeed. I thanked her again and left, clutching my schedule and laptop to my chest. My first class, Japanese literature, beckoned, but before I could move, a familiar voice called out, "Leafy!" I turned to see a tall boy with sandy blonde hair and a wide grin jogging toward me. He wore the same uniform but loosened at the collar, exuding effortless confidence. "You must be the new guy," he said, extending a hand. "I'm Kai Tanaka. Welcome to Sakura." His handshake was firm, his eyes friendly. Relief flooded me, an unexpected spark of connection. "I'm Levi," I replied, shaking his hand. "Nice to meet you." He gestured down the hallway. "Come on, I'll show you to your first period. Don't worry, this place isn't as scary as it looks." As we walked toward room 204, Kai chatted about the best clubs, the poetry society, where to get the crispiest takoyaki at lunchtime. His easy confidence and genuine friendliness began to dissolve my reservations. I realized that at 17 I was gifted a second chance, not just at family but at belonging. When the bell rang and the classroom doors opened, I felt a surge of gratitude for the father who rescued me and for the new world unfolding before me. Each step, each introduction, each friendly greeting wove a tapestry of hope I had scarcely dared to dream possible. Today was only the beginning, but already I sensed that this chapter of my life, written on the slate of Sakura International Academy, would be one of transformation, healing, and the forging of a future defined not by abandonment, but by possibility. The midday sun filtered through the tall windows of Sakura International Academy's library, illuminating dust motes that danced in lazy spirals. I entered the hushed room, heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Shelves of leather-bound volumes rose like silent sentinels, and students furled in corners behind open books or tapped quietly on laptops. At a polished oak table by the back wall, a poised young woman waited, her posture straight and intent. "Levi Hayashi?" she asked, voice soft but confident. Her nameplate read, "Ms. Emiko Minami, academic tutor." She offered a brief, respectful bow. I nodded and slid into the seat opposite her, careful to keep my messenger bag on the floor beside me. "Good morning," she began, opening her notebook. "I've reviewed your records and spoken with your teachers. Today, we'll focus on your literature and mathematics assignments to help you catch up." Her tone was efficient but kind, no hint of pity, only professional dedication. She pushed a stack of papers toward me, annotated essays, practice problem sets, and a personalized reading schedule. I admired her organization. "Thank you," I said, trying to steady my voice. I appreciate the help." She offered a small smile. "You're not behind because you lack ability. Life circumstances intervened. Now that you have the resources, we'll bring you to grade level swiftly. Let's begin with your Japanese literature essay on Matsuo Basho's haiku." She tapped a blue-inked comment. "Great sensory detail, but develop your thematic insight further." I nodded, scanning my own writing. "I wrote that poem to reflect impermanence," I said, finger-tracing the lines. "But I struggled to articulate how it connects to human sorrow." She leaned forward, eyes bright. "A haiku often captures a fleeting moment, a single emotion. Try exploring how that fleeting image mirrors a universal experience. For instance, what does an empty shell or a single fallen leaf suggest about loss?" Her guidance unlocked a clarity I hadn't thought possible. I scribbled notes, feeling a surge of confidence as my words took shape under her mentorship. After an hour of targeted revisions, the tension behind my forehead eased. Math followed, algebraic functions and geometry proofs, subjects I once found daunting. Each time I hesitated, Ms. Minami offered a patient prompt rather than an immediate answer, guiding me to discover solutions on my own. By the end of our session, the knotted anxiety in my chest had unwound, replaced by a quiet pride in my own progress. At 1:30, I gathered my things and left the library, the cool marble hallway echoing my footsteps. I passed clusters of students returning from lunch, laughing, tossing questions back and forth about upcoming exams. The campus felt alive, a living organism of ambition and camaraderie. For the first time, I was a part of it, not merely an observer. My father's text blinked on my phone. "How were you?" I took a breath and typed back, "I'm doing well. Tutors are great. I feel capable." Within seconds, his reply appeared. "Excellent. I'll see you at home later. Proud of you." A warmth flooded me. His pride was a steady flame, nourishing my own self-belief. In afternoon literature, Mr. Park assigned a group discussion on Shakespeare's Hamlet. I sat beside Kai, who winked and whispered, "You'll be great," before the class settled. When the time came to speak, I drew on the morning's work. Hamlet's soliloquy grapples with existential dread, much like haiku confronts impermanence. Both use concise imagery to expose deep emotion. The room fell silent, then erupted in nods and questions. Even Mr. Park offered an approving smile. My cheeks warmed, but I felt anchored rather than exposed. After school, Kai and I strolled through the campus gardens, vibrant with cherry blossom petals drifting in the breeze. He pointed out hidden stone lanterns and koi ponds I hadn't yet noticed. "There's a Zen garden over there," he said, nodding toward a secluded courtyard. "It's perfect for clearing your head." I followed him along a winding path lined with bamboo until we reached a raked gravel expanse dotted with mossy stones. I knelt to run my fingers through the fine white gravel, leaving behind neat patterns. The quiet here was profound, broken only by the whisper of wind through bamboo leaves. I closed my eyes and felt the stress of abandonment, airport chaos, and academic anxiety melt away. In its place, a stillness grew like the calm after a storm, gentle but resolute. Kai's voice pulled me back. "You okay?" I opened my eyes to find his genuine concern. "Yeah," I said, rising to my feet. "For the first time in a long time." He grinned. "That's what Sakura does." He nudged me playfully. "Want to join the photography club? We're planning a shoot under the blossoms tomorrow." I hesitated, then nodded. "Sure, why not?" He threw an arm around my shoulder. "Welcome to the team." As dusk settled, I returned to the driveway where my father's sedan waited. He greeted me with a proud nod, and we shared a quiet ride home through streets cloaked in twilight. I gazed at the neon reflections in puddles on the asphalt, the everyday bustle of evening commuters passing by, and realized I had reclaimed more than my future. I had rediscovered my voice, my agency, and the simple joy of belonging. When we arrived back at Rokugawa Heights, Masaru walked me to my door. "You did well today," he said, voice gentle. "Tomorrow we'll discuss your mother's legal claims. Rest now. You deserve a peaceful night." I smiled, gratitude filling me. As I lay down on my futon, the soft glow of paper lanterns casting warm patterns on the ceiling, I felt a profound sense of home. Not just the estate, but within myself. The abandoned boy was gone. In his place stood a young man ready to write his own story, page by page, under the guiding hand of his father and the quiet strength he was learning to trust. The dawn mist clung to the cedar-lined driveway, lending an ethereal hush to Rokugawa Heights as I emerged in the garden courtyard. Today was to be the day I confronted the shadows Serena had cast over my life. Beside me, Masaru arranged a low folding screen near the koi pond's edge, brochures and legal documents laid out on a lacquered table. The water's surface rippled with the koi's arcs, golden scales shimmering like embers in the soft morning light. "Levi," he said quietly, "the legal team has prepared the court filings. We'll deliver them this afternoon. But first, I want to show you something." His tone was gentle, the same calm reassurance that had carried me from Shinjuku Station into his arms. I nodded, bracing myself for what lay ahead while welcoming his steady presence. He led me along a mossy stone path to a hidden tea house overlooking the pond. Sliding open the shoji door, I stepped into a room where time itself seemed to pause. A low table held 2 cups of matcha tea, its surface frothy and jade green. Intricate wood carvings adorn the walls, windswept bamboo, soaring cranes, and a single line of calligraphy. "Strength and compassion are one." Masaru gestured for me to sit across from him. "Your mother's claims will be heard today in family court," he explained. "She's contesting the annulment of spousal support and the trust fund restrictions. But the evidence is clear. You were abandoned. She forfeited any rights to your upbringing or assets." His steady gaze made my heart pound less fiercely than the thought of facing her again. I cradled my cup of matcha, letting the warmth seep into my fingers. "I'm nervous," I admitted, voice hushed. He smiled, tone soft. "As you should be. It means this matters to you. But know this. I've ensured every document, every affidavit, leaves no room for doubt. You focus on being yourself in court. I'll handle the rest." He paused, reaching across the table to place his hand over mine. His skin was warm, grounding. "You have nothing to apologize for." I inhaled deeply, nodding. The matcha's bittersweet taste reminded me that healing often carried a sting. "Thank you," I whispered, "for fighting for me." He squeezed my hand. "Always." After tea, I dressed in the charcoal grey suit Masaru had laid out, single-breasted, perfectly tailored, with a white shirt pressed to perfection and a striped silk tie. Standing before the mirror, I barely recognized the young man reflected there, his shoulders squared, eyes calm, and posture dignified. Gone was the beaten-down boy who trembled at the thought of abandonment. Here stood someone ready to face the world on his own terms. We departed before noon, a black sedan gliding silently through pine-shrouded roads toward the family courthouse in central Tokyo. I watched skyscrapers rise beyond the trembling treetops, a testament that, even in this sprawling city, my small drama would play out under the judiciary's watchful gaze. Inside the courthouse's hushed marble lobby, I felt the old adrenaline surge, fear, anger, shame. Masaru's hand on my elbow steadied me as he led me to the gallery. Serena sat at the front bench, her dark hair pulled into a tight bun, couture suit impeccably fitted. She looked smaller than I'd remembered, as though time had stripped her of the veneer she once wore so proudly. My breath caught. She met my gaze, eyes wide with shock, then defiance. A courtroom clerk called the case, and we took our places. My lawyer, a composed woman with silver hair and a voice like calm waters, presented the uncontested facts. Serena's unilateral departure, abandoned evidence, and the terms of our trust. Exhibits were entered, boarding passes, incriminating text messages, financial records showing her diverted funds. Each piece landed like a hammer on the case's anvil, forging an unbreakable truth. When it was my turn, I stood. My legs felt firm beneath me. I addressed the judge, my voice clear. I was 15 years old when my mother left me at Shinjuku Station. I felt discarded, unworthy of love or care. Since then, I have thrived under my father's protection and guidance. I do not wish to punish her further, but I deserve the security and stability she denied me. I asked the court to uphold my father's petition. Every word carried the weight of years of hurt and of hope. I felt Serena's gaze burn into my back, but I did not flinch. When I finished, I returned to my seat, heart hammering, but soul steady. The room fell silent. Then the judge's gavel struck once, decisive. The court finds in favor of the petitioner, Masaru Hayashi. All claims by Serena Nakamura are dismissed. Costs shall be borne by the petitioner. Relief washed over me like a spring rain. I exhaled, tears pricking my eyes. Masaru smiled gently, pride and something deeper shining in his eyes. As we left the courtroom, I caught Serena's broken form, shoulders slumped, tears unshed in her eyes. She stood frozen, a ghost of the woman who once gave voice to my greatest fears. I felt no cruelty, only clarity. I was no longer hers to claim. Outside, the city buzzed with midday traffic, oblivious to my victory. Masaru guided me to the car. "How do you feel?" he asked softly. "Free," I breathed. He nodded, eyes bright. "Then that is all that matters." As the sedan glided into traffic, I realized that this triumph was not just legal. It was personal rebirth. I was no longer the abandoned boy of Shinjuku Station, but a young man with agency, love, and a future secured by the unwavering strength of my father's devotion. The city passed us by, but I knew I was headed toward a horizon of my own making, untethered, unyielding, and utterly free. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the shoji screens of my bedroom at Rokugawa Heights, painting shifting patterns on the tatami mats. Despite the late hour of yesterday's courthouse victory, I awoke before dawn, mind buzzing with possibilities rather than dread. For the first time, a sense of genuine curiosity stirred in me about the life unfolding before me, its routines, relationships, and small wonders. After a light breakfast of grilled fish, steamed rice, and miso soup prepared by our house chef, I found Masaru in his study, reviewing reports. He looked up as I entered, eyes warm with concern and pride. "Sleep well?" he asked. I nodded, settling into the seat opposite his desk. I did, really well. I hesitated, unsure how to articulate the magnitude of my relief. "Thank you for everything, Dad, for fighting for me and for giving me a chance to live a proper life." He leaned back, folding his hands. "You earned every bit of it, Levi, but today I'd like us to step away from legal matters and schoolwork. There's something I think you should experience." His lips curved in a rare smile, the one that hinted at adventure rather than protocol. Curiosity piqued, I followed him through the house and into the garage, where a black EV sedan waited alongside a sleek electric motorbike. He retrieved a matte black helmet and handed it to me. "Ride with me to the coast," he announced. "There's a place I want to show you, one that holds meaning for our family." I slid on the helmet, my heart pounding with excitement. and a flicker of nerves. Motorbikes had always seemed thrilling yet perilous, but his calm confidence was contagious. We mounted the bike, my father in front, me behind, and at a press of a button, the engine purred to life. We exited the estate gates into the pre-dawn hush of winding mountain roads. The air was cool and sharp in my lungs as we accelerated, the world a blur of cedars and stone lanterns at first, then rice paddies and small fishing hamlets. Dawn's pale glow touched the horizon as we descended toward Sagami Bay. I felt a rare exhilaration, the kind that comes from trusting someone with your safety and anticipating a discovery. After an hour's ride, we reached a secluded cove where waves lapped against craggy rocks. A single wooden pier stretched into the water. Masaru shut off the engine and removed his helmet, then lifted mine off my head. The wind carried the brine of the sea and the cries of distant seabirds. He led me down the pier. At the end stood a weathered bench carved with initials and dates. I traced the letters M.H. and another set of initials, older, worn smooth by sun and salt. He sat and gestured for me to join him. I obeyed, the wooden plank cool against my jeans. "This is where your grandfather and I used to come," he said quietly. "He taught me how to fish, how to read the tides, and how to find stillness in life's storms. He believed that moments like this remind us who we are at our core, children of nature and time." His gaze drifted out over the water. "I wanted you to know that you're part of something larger than any courtroom or school. You have roots that run deep, beyond pain and conflict." I stared at the horizon, where the sky met the sea in a seamless line. The memory of abandonment and the armored cocoon of empowerment both felt distant here. A single thought emerged. "I understand. This place, it feels like home in a new way." He nodded, a proud glimmer in his eyes. "Good. Because life will offer storms and they'll test your resolve. But when you feel lost, remember this moment, the hush of dawn, the embrace of wind and water. Remember who you are, my son, the heir to our family's legacy of strength and compassion." The gentle surf's rhythm seemed to affirm his words. I closed my eyes and let the sound wash over me, cementing the promise of belonging. When I opened them again, I felt a quiet determination solidify inside me. He rose and gestured for me to stand as well. Behind us, a small fishing boat bobbed on the waves, its hull painted a deep indigo. "Shall we?" he asked, voice warm. He led me back to the bike, where he handed me a small wooden box tied with twine. "Your grandfather left this for you," he explained. "Inside you'll find his enamel fishing lure and a note. Keep it with you, it's a talisman of steadiness." I accepted the box with reverent fingers, heart racing at the weight of its legacy. We mounted the bike once more, turning inland with the sun now fully risen. As the wind rushed past, I felt something new stirring, a sense of purpose rooted not in vengeance or fear, but in heritage, connection, and the knowledge that I belonged, truly belonged. By the time we returned to Rokugawa Heights, the estate shone under a bright morning sky. I dismounted, the wooden box secure in my pocket. My father removed his helmet and ruffled my hair gently. "Ready for school?" he asked with a teasing grin. I laughed. A full, genuine laugh that echoed across the driveway. Absolutely. He nodded, satisfaction evident in his posture. Then go. And remember, everything you do today builds on who you are, not who you were. I climbed into the waiting sedan, excitement churning within me. As we drove away, I held the wooden box on my lap, its promise of legacy and strength resonating like the first chords of a song I was only just beginning to learn. And in that moment, I knew that no matter where life carried me, through triumphs or tribulations, I would carry my family's faith in me, unwavering, like the steady pulse of the sea against the shore. The following dawn found me roused by the gentle trill of my phone, an early morning reminder from Kai Tanaka about today's photography club outing beneath the cherry blossoms at the Northern Garden. I dressed quickly in casual attire, a soft grey sweater, dark jeans, and sneakers that had seen better days. After a modest breakfast of natto, rice, and miso soup, I met Masaru in the foyer. He offered me a reassuring nod and a rare, mischievous grin. "Have fun today," he said, handing me my camera bag, a lightweight, mirrorless model I had admired the day before. "And remember, make memories you'll want to look back on." His encouragement settled over me like a warm blanket. I slung the bag over my shoulder and made my way to the estate's entrance, where Kai was already waiting beside his own camera, a retro film model he wielded with practiced ease. "Ready to capture some blossom magic?" he asked, eyes alight with excitement. "Absolutely," I replied, adjusting the camera strap. "Show me the way." We walked together down the winding path that led from Rokugawa Heights toward the sprawling grounds of Sakura International Academy's Northern Garden. The hill's gradient eased into a broad lawn where ancient cherry trees stood in solemn rows, their pale pink petals drifting like soft snow in the gentle breeze. Beneath them, students lounged on picnic blankets, cameras clicking as they framed blossom boughs against the sky. Kai grinned. "This spot is prime. Let's start with silhouette shots of the branches against the morning sun." He took his position and gestured for me to do likewise. I raised my camera, peering through the viewfinder as I aligned the gnarled limbs of a blossom-laden tree with the glowing orb of dawn. When I pressed the shutter, the click felt like a heartbeat synchronized with nature's own. After a few minutes, Kai waved me over to a cluster of students clustered around a low, wooden bench draped with a pastel scarf. He introduced me to Emiko Ito, the club's president, a petite girl with a pixie cut and a confident air. She held a DSLR at her side. "Levi, welcome to the club," she said, offering a handshake. "We're doing a thematic series today on solitude and bloom, capturing the tension between isolation and renewal." Her gaze flicked to the blossoms, then back to me. "Would you like to model for a few shots? Just simple, contemplative poses." My heart skipped, but I nodded. Kai positioned me on the bench beneath an arching canopy of petals. Emiko adjusted her lens, instructing, "Look downward, as if you're listening to the whisper of the blossoms." I bowed my head, closing my eyes, and felt the soft rain of petals on my hair. When the shutter clicked, I imagined the image, a solitary figure framed by ephemeral blooms, embodying both isolation and the promise of rebirth. We spent the next hour experimenting with angles, overhead shots of scattered petals, close-ups of blossoms with dew-laden stamens, wide panoramas capturing the garden's full expanse. I found myself laughing with Kai and the others, sharing tips on depth of field and exposure. Each click of the shutter felt like a small triumph, a testament to the beauty hidden in transient moments. Mid-morning, Emiko gathered us beneath the largest cherry tree, its trunk gnarled with age. She produced a single sheet of translucent rice paper, tinted pale pink. "Let's create a layered effect," she explained. "Hold the paper in front of the lens and focus on the petals behind. It'll give a dreamlike haze." We took turns holding the sheet, marveling at the soft, ethereal glow it cast over our images. When my turn came, I watched the blossoms bleed into pastel fog through the viewfinder and felt a thrill at the fusion of technique and artistry. As noon approached, the club disbanded for lunch, inviting any member to join a picnic beneath the blossoms. I found myself alongside Kai, Emiko, and a few others. Hana, a literature enthusiast always scribbling in a notebook, and Daisuke, a quiet boy with a penchant for astrophotography. We shared onigiri and fruit, discussing favorite photographers and the symbolism of cherry blossoms in art and culture. I realized how easily conversation flowed, how this group, without judgment, welcomed me as one of their own. After lunch, I slipped away to a nearby gazebo where I opened the wooden box my father had given me. Inside lay the enamel lure and a folded note in my grandfather's neat handwriting. "Levi, may this lure remind you that patience and precision yield the greatest catches in life." Grandfather. I held the little metal fish, feeling its cool weight and the promise of legacy it carried. I tucked it safely into my pocket and gave thanks for the connection that spanned generations. Returning to the garden, I encountered Masaru, who had brought a thermos of hot tea and a small assortment of wagashi. He offered me a cup, his presence quiet and steady. "How's your first photography expedition?" he asked. I sipped the tea, its sweetness mingling with a subtle bitterness that reminded me of matcha. "Life-changing," I admitted. "I've never felt more myself." He smiled, eyes soft. "Good. Remember, the lens doesn't lie. It captures truth even when it's hidden. Use it well." I nodded, inspired by his words. We watched as a petal drifted down to rest on the pond's mirrored surface, creating ripples that spread outward in perfect circles. In that moment, I understood that my life, once thrown into chaos by abandonment, now rippled with beauty, purpose, and belonging. As the sun edged toward afternoon, I packed my camera bag, feeling both exhilarated and at peace. I had captured hundreds of images, each frame a testament to resilience and renewal. Walking back toward the estate's gates with Kai at my side, I realized that this day, marked by blossoms, lenses, and the quiet support of new friends, was a milestone in my journey. When I reached my car, Masaru was there, offering a proud nod. "Ready to review your shots?" he asked. I grinned, unlocking my bag. "More than ready." Together we drove back to Rokugawa Heights, the car filled with the scent of pine and the promise of countless stories waiting to be framed. And in the quiet hum of the engine, I felt an unshakable certainty. My life had been replanted, like those cherry trees with roots deep in love and strength, and now, at last, I was free to bloom. The following morning, sunlight streamed through the high windows of the dojo at Rokugawa Heights, where I found Masaru awaiting me in his training gi. The soft rustle of fabric and the scent of polished wood greeted me, transforming the austere room into a sanctuary of discipline and focus. Arranged neatly along the far wall were wooden bokken, practice swords, and rolled tatami mats. I realized my father intended today to be more than a lesson in physical skill. It would be a lesson in inner strength. He bowed to me as I had seen students do in martial arts films. "Levi," he said, voice calm, "today we train mind and body. The external form is important, but true mastery comes from harmony between your will and your actions." His posture was a model of relaxed readiness, and I felt the same mixture of nerves and anticipation I'd experienced before the court hearing, only this time it was tinged with excitement rather than fear. I donned my own gi, its white cotton crisp against my skin. We began with basic stances: Zenkutsu Dachi, forward stance, Kakutsu Dachi, back stance, and Kiba Dachi, horse stance. Each position required precise foot placement, weight distribution, and a centered gaze. My legs trembled as I lowered into Kiba Dachi, but Masaru's voice guided me. "Root yourself like an ancient tree. Feel the ground's support. Let your center of gravity be your foundation." I inhaled deeply, pushing my weight into the balls of my feet, focusing on the curve of my spine and the alignment of my shoulders. The trembling subsided as I imagined roots extending from my heels into the earth. When I shifted forward into Zenkutsu Dachi, the transition felt smooth, almost effortless. My muscles hummed with newfound confidence. Next came the bokken drills. Masaru demonstrated a simple saburi, repetitive sword swing designed to cultivate form and control. He raised the wooden blade above his head, then brought it down in a precise, controlled arc. I mimicked his movement, watching the trajectory of my swing and the angle of my wrists. Each cut required intention. Too much force would break form, too little would lack conviction. "Every strike," Masaru explained, "should be like a word spoken with clarity. Either it conveys exactly what you intend, or it is meaningless." He guided my arms, adjusting my grip and stance until the swing felt balanced. After dozens of repetitions, my arms burned with exertion, yet I felt exhilarated, my body learning to translate intention into action with ever-increasing precision. We paused for water. Outside the dojo's open shoji panels, autumn leaves drifted in slow spirals, painting the courtyard in copper and gold. I caught my breath, knuckles white around the water bottle. Masaru offered me a small nod of approval. "You are doing well. True strength is forged in repetition and resilience, not in fleeting displays of power." Refreshed, we resumed practice with partner drills. We moved through a choreographed sequence of attacks and deflections, a measured thrust, a diagonal slash, a swift parry. Each movement required trust in my own reflexes and trust in my father to guide and test me without malice. During one sequence, he feinted low, then shifted his weight and reached to tap my shoulder. I instinctively shifted my footwork and countered with a safe, controlled strike to his bokken, eliciting a soft chuckle of approval. "Excellent," he praised. "You responded without hesitation. That is growth." My chest swelled with pride as I bowed to him, sweat-damp hair clinging to my forehead. After training, we sat in Caesar, kneeling on the tatami. Masaru poured hot tea into 2 small cups, the steam curling upward like ephemeral wisps of thought. "Levi," he began, voice gentle, "you've faced abandonment, reclaimed your life in court, and now you are learning discipline through martial practice. Each of these steps builds on the last, resilience grounded in self-awareness." I sipped the tea, its bitterness grounding me. "I feel more centered than ever," I admitted. "Like each part of my journey, courtroom, school, garden, and now dojo has prepared me for the next challenge." He smiled, his eyes reflecting pride and expectation. "Challenges will come, son. Life does not end with one victory. But now you possess tools, your legal victory, your education, your creative spark, and now mental and physical discipline. Use them together, and no obstacle will stand for long." I absorbed his words as the afternoon light shifted across the wooden floor. For so long, I had felt fragile, at the mercy of others' choices and whims. Yet here I sat, a young man forged by love and tested by trials, capable of standing his ground in every sense. The thought filled me with quiet joy. We rose and stowed the bokken. Outside, the air had grown crisp with the promise of night. Masaru placed a hand on my shoulder. "Tonight, we celebrate your progress. I have arranged a family dinner at Yugiri, the tea house by the moonlit pond. Come as you are, with an open heart." I nodded, gratitude welling in me. As we walked back through the courtyard and toward the house, I realized that life, like martial practice, was a series of carefully chosen moves, each requiring intention, balance, and perseverance. And with my father at my side, I felt ready to meet whatever came next, with strength, compassion, and the unshakable knowledge that I belonged. That evening, as dusk draped Rokugawa Heights in a veil of indigo, Masaru presented me with the invitation to Yugiri, an intimate tea house built over a moonlit pond, famed for its floating lanterns. The path to the tea house wound through lantern-lit gardens, stepping stones arching over koi-filled streams, maples aflame with autumn's fire, and sculpted pines whose branches reached out like welcoming arms. I felt a thrilling mix of anticipation and reverence, as though I were crossing into a world woven from legend and light. Masaru walked beside me, his presence a steady beacon. "Tonight we honor your journey," he said softly, "and the bonds that carry us forward." He paused at the tea house entrance, a low Norin curtain embroidered with the Yugiri emblem, a delicate moon cradled by a lotus. He lifted it and led me inside. Within, the air was warm with incense and the faint strain of koto strings playing somewhere beyond the sliding screens. Soft lantern light danced over lacquered tables set with porcelain cups and ceramic dishes, each arranged with the precision of a calligrapher's stroke. Servers in muted kimono moved with grace, carrying trays heaped with seasonal delicacies, simmered matsutake mushrooms, vinegared daikon ribbons, slices of amber-hued persimmon, and glistening river fish grilled to perfection. Masaru guided me to a seat beside a low window overlooking the pond. I watched as lanterns were set adrift on the inky water, glowing like fallen stars, finding their place among the carp. The gentle ripples carried reflections of autumn foliage, petals drifting across the surface in silent farewell. My breath caught at the ethereal beauty, a reminder that each moment, however fleeting, could be sanctified by intention. A server placed a lacquered tray before me. "For Master Hayashi," she said with a respectful bow, then retreated. I lifted the lid to reveal a portion of rice garnished with golden yuzu peel, alongside a delicate morsel of simmered chestnut. I paused to inhale the scent, warm, nutty, subtly sweet, before tasting. My palate awakened, and I closed my eyes, savoring the harmony of flavors. Masaru inclined his head. "Taste the season," he said. "Life, like this meal, is composed of seasonal surprises, some sweet, some subtle, all meaningful." His gaze on the pond was contemplative, as though he heard secrets whispered by the lanterns. I followed his example, sipping a cup of steaming genmaicha. "It's beautiful," I murmured. "Thank you for bringing me here." He smiled gently. "You're welcome. I wanted you to see how beauty can rise from stillness, how, even in darkness, light persists." He gestured toward the pond. "Much like your life, abandoned once in a crowded station, you have been guided back into light, into purpose and belonging." My throat constricted. I glanced at the glowing lanterns, their tiny flames unwavering on the water's gentle pulses. "I feel more alive than ever," I admitted, "and more whole." He placed his hand over mine, the warmth a silent vow. "You are whole, Levi. Never doubt it." We shared the meal in companionable silence, broken only by the rustle of silk and the soft plink of porcelain. Between courses, servers drifted in to refill tea and offer seasonal sweets, blooms of mochi pastel pink and pale green, shaped like chrysanthemum petals. Each sweetness felt like a benediction, a small affirmation of life's continuing grace. After the final course, a silky yuzu sorbet, Masaru leaned back, his expression turned thoughtful. "There is one more thing I wish to share with you," he said. "It concerns your future beyond these walls." I sat forward, curiosity alight. "What is it?" He retrieved an envelope from his inner pocket and handed it to me. The seal bore our family crest, a stylized pine needle and crane. With careful fingers, I broke the wax and withdrew its contents, a formal letter on heavy cream-colored stationery. It was an offer of apprenticeship in the firm of Hayashi and Company, the family enterprise specializing in sustainable urban development. The letter outlined a program, 2 years of mentorship under senior partners, rotating through project planning, corporate governance, and community outreach, culminating in the opportunity to lead an initiative of my own design. My breath caught. Ever since I'd sat in that courtroom chair, I had dreamed of pursuing my passions without feeling unmoored by my past. Now before me lay a clear path, education, family support, and a vocation aligned with my values. "This," I stammered, eyes lifting to his, "this is incredible. I never imagined you would open this world to me." He inclined his head, pride shining in his gaze. "You have earned every opportunity, Levi. Your resilience, your creativity, your discipline, they prove you are ready. The world needs leaders who are strong yet compassionate, just as our family has sought to be. I believe that leader is you. Tears threatened once more, but I blinked them back, swallowing the lump in my throat. I won't let you down, I promised, voice firm. He pressed my hand. You will surpass every expectation. And I will be by your side, as always. Outside, the lanterns continued their silent voyage across the moonlit pond. I watched their lights drift toward the far shore, each glow unwavering against the dark expanse. In that moment, I understood the truth of my father's words. My journey, once marked by loss, had become a testament to renewal, purpose, and enduring love. I folded the letter and tucked it into my pocket, cradling its promise close to my heart. Rising, I bowed deeply to my father, gratitude and determination radiating from my posture. As we stepped back into the night, the lantern's gentle glow followed us, a reminder that wherever I roamed, through challenges or triumphs, a light would always guide me home. The morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Hayashi and Company's headquarters, casting geometric patterns across the polished terrazzo floor. I rode the glass elevator up to the 42nd floor, my heart thumping with both anticipation and a quiet pride. Today marked my first official day as an apprentice in the family firm, a milestone that seemed impossible only months ago when I stood abandoned on a cold station platform. The reception area was hushed and elegant, minimalist desks of pale wood, a living green wall of ferns and ivy, and a sculpture of interlocking stone rings symbolizing balance and harmony. Behind a sleek counter stood Ms. Tanaka, the firm's executive assistant, whose poised efficiency I'd heard about during my orientation. She offered me a warm, professional smile when I approached. "Master Hayashi," she greeted, using my formal title. "Mr. Nakamura will see you now in his office." She gestured toward a corridor lined with framed aerial photographs of innovative green rooftops and sustainable urban parks, Hayashi & Co.'s signature projects. I nodded, smoothing the lapels of my tailored navy blazer, and followed her past the photographs. Each image spoke of transformation. Grey concrete blocks turned into lush gardens, abandoned warehouses repurposed as community centers, grey rooftops blossoming into urban farms. My chest swelled with the realization that soon I would help bring such projects to life. At the end of the corridor, a nameplate read, Keiji Nakamura, Senior Partner. I paused, recalling that Mr. Nakamura was both a respected industry leader and my father's mentor. I knocked lightly on the frosted glass door before entering. Inside, Mr. Nakamura stood behind a wide oak desk strewn with blueprints and digital tablets. His salt and pepper hair was impeccably styled, and he wore a charcoal suit that suggested decades of boardroom battles won with both integrity and acumen. He looked up, his dark eyes behind thin-rimmed glasses lighting with recognition and warmth. "Levi," he said, rising to extend his hand, "welcome to Hayashi and Company. I've heard much about you, from your father, of course, but also from the legal team and the board. They speak of your resilience and your creative mind." His handshake was firm and encouraging. "Thank you, sir," I replied, settling into the guest chair across from his desk. Though formalities governed this meeting, I felt no anxiety. Rather, a sense of belonging washed over me. Mr. Nakamura gestured to a set of project folders. Today, you'll shadow my team on the Asahi Community Redevelopment, our flagship project to transform a derelict factory district into affordable housing and green spaces. You'll observe site meetings, assist with design adjustments, and learn our stakeholder engagement protocols. He handed me a tablet loaded with relevant documents. Read through these before we depart. We have a morning briefing in 30 minutes. I nodded, opening the tablet and scanning the executive summary. Maps of factory lots, demographic studies, environmental impact reports. Each page brimmed with data and possibilities. I felt my pulse quicken as I realized I was no longer on the sidelines. I was part of the solution. We walked through a door marked Conference Room A, where a half-dozen colleagues, architects, urban planners, environmental engineers, were already seated around a long glass table. I introduced myself briefly. I'm Levi Hayashi, apprentice. Polite nods and welcoming smiles followed. Ms. Ogawa, the lead planner, offered me a seat next to her. Glad to have you, Levi, she said. Your father tells us you have a sharp eye for synthesis. We'll put that to the test today. Her warmth eased my nerves. The briefing began with a video presentation, aerial drone footage of the factory district, footage of rusted warehouses, cracked pavements, and empty storefronts. Then, overlaid images showed proposed green corridors, community gardens, and mixed-use residential blocks with rooftop solar panels. The room buzzed with questions about zoning regulations, community feedback, and budget constraints. When the floor opened for comments, I spoke up carefully. If we orient the open plazas to face southeast, we could harness morning sunlight to warm communal seating areas in cooler months, reducing energy costs for heating. The lead engineer, Mr. Suzuki, nodded thoughtfully. Good point, Levi. That aligns with our sustainability goals. My heart soared at his acknowledgement. My suggestion, shaped by my morning readings, had real value. After the briefing, we piled into 2 SUVs and drove to the project site. I watched city blocks giving way to industrial relics, then to unfenced lots dotted with wild grass and poplars. At the entrance, construction barriers displayed the project's logo, a green phoenix rising from factory silhouettes. Never had I felt more alive than standing there, imagining the phoenix's wings unfurling. On site, we met with the contractor and local community representatives, residents, business owners, school principals, gathered under a white tent. I observed as Ms. Ogawa facilitated the round table. She listened to a shopkeeper's concerns about displaced parking, her parents' worries about child safety near building sites, and an elderly woman's hopes for a nearby garden space. When asked for input, I remembered my father's lessons on empathy and clarity. I introduced myself and said, our plan includes designated parking clusters to minimize disruption, and we'll install temporary walking paths with safety railings to ensure children and seniors can move freely. We also propose partnering with the local horticultural society to co-design the community garden, giving residents a direct role in its layout. The crowd murmured approval, and the contractor made notes. As the meeting concluded, the sun dipped toward the horizon. I realized I'd spent an entire day thinking, speaking, and collaborating as a professional, yet still feeling the same awe I'd felt beneath the cherry blossoms and on the dojo floor. My father's faith in me had translated into this, a tangible impact on real lives and real spaces. That evening, back at Rokugawa Heights, I reflected on my first apprenticeship day as I sat in the home library. The textbooks and legal files had given way to live dialogue, community engagement, and design innovation. I opened the wooden box from my grandfather and took out the enamel lure, gazing at its simple perfection. I realized that, like fishing, urban development required patience, precision, and an understanding of currents, whether in water or in human dynamics. When Masaru joined me with 2 cups of genmaicha, I smiled up at him. "Today was incredible," I said, voice soft with satisfaction. He sat beside me, offering a cup. "I watched your progress remotely." Reports were glowing. "You navigated every meeting with confidence and compassion." He paused. "Your journey from abandoned boy to budding professional embodies everything our family stands for: resilience, integrity, and service to community." I lifted my cup and met his gaze. "Thank you for giving me the chance to prove myself." He nodded, pride shining in his eyes. "And you have. This is only the beginning." As the lanterns in the study flickered to life and dusk settled across the estate, I realized that I was not merely writing my own story, but contributing to the stories of countless others, transforming spaces, lives, and, above all, the future. And in that realization, I found a purpose deeper than any I had ever known. The pale winter sun filtered through the frosted glass of the home library at Rokugawa Heights as I slipped into the plush armchair beside the crackling fireplace. The noon hour was uncommonly still, save for the soft turning of pages and the steady rhythm of the flames. Masaru entered quietly, his footsteps muted on the thick carpet. He carried a folded newspaper and a leather-bound portfolio under one arm. "Levi," he began, settling into the matching armchair opposite mine, "I thought you might like to see today's press coverage of the Asahi project." He laid the newspaper on the low table between us. The front-page article bore a headline proclaiming "Hayashi and Company leads urban renewal in eastern Tokyo," with my suggestion about southeast-facing plazas quoted in a highlighted sidebar. A photograph showed me speaking at the site meeting, confident and assured. I traced the letters of my name beneath the photo, pride and astonishment swelling in my chest. "I'm honored," I said softly. "But more than that, I'm grateful for the trust you and Mr. Nakamura placed in me." Masaru inclined his head, eyes gleaming. "You earned it. Today, I have another opportunity for you, one that will further broaden your experience." He opened the portfolio to reveal a color-coded map of Tokyo's waterfront district. "The City Council has invited Hayashi and Company to consult on a sustainable festival park. It's an experimental concept, a floating promenade with eco-friendly pavilions, solar-powered lighting, and interactive exhibits about marine conservation. We've only 24 hours to prepare a conceptual presentation for tomorrow's council meeting." My pulse quickened. A rapid turnaround pitch like this would test my ability to synthesize information under pressure, exactly the kind of challenge I craved. "I'll get started right away," I replied, sliding forward in my seat. He offered me a folder of reference materials, zoning regulations, environmental impact data, budget constraints, and preliminary sketches by the design team. "Work with Ms. Ogawa and the environmental specialists. I'll connect you with the council liaison. Remember, clarity and creativity must go hand in hand. He rose and patted my shoulder before departing, leaving me alone with the roaring fire and a mountain of documents. I exhaled, rolling up my sleeves. The hush of the library felt charged with possibility. I spread the materials across the table and began to outline key objectives: maximize public access, minimize ecological footprint, and foster community engagement. I sketched rough site plans showing floating platforms linked by translucent walkways, clusters of solar canopies shaped like sails, and interactive tide pools for educational outreach. An hour later, I retreated to my office, a glass-walled study perched above the gardens, and convened a virtual meeting with the lead architect, Kano, the marine biologist, Dr. Fujimoto, and Ms. Ogawa. Each greeted me with warm enthusiasm, their screens glowing against the twilight outside. "Levi, your initial sketches look promising," Kano said, adjusting his headset. "But we need to consider wave action and mooring stability. Otherwise, the promenade will sway dangerously." I nodded, rapidly annotating my drawings. "Understood. We'll incorporate anchored buoy systems and adjustable gangways to accommodate tidal shifts." Dr. Fujimoto added, "And the tide pools must have controlled inflow and outflow valves to protect marine life. Visitors can observe starfish and hermit crabs without disrupting their habitat." I integrated her note into the site plan, drawing small gated enclosures at strategic intervals. Ms. Ogawa chimed in. "For community engagement, we could host evening lantern launches on floating platforms, each lantern inscribed by a local schoolchild with messages about ocean conservation." I smiled at the idea, imagining the soft glow drifting on the water. "I love that." "Let's include a pavilion dedicated to student art and environmental pledges." By the time the clock chimed 6, we had coalesced our ideas into a comprehensive storyboard, bold diagrams, annotated sketches, and a narrative arc emphasizing experiential learning and sustainable design. I compiled our work into a sleek slide deck and rehearsed my talking points, refining each sentence to balance technical detail with engaging storytelling. That evening, I joined Masaru in his study at 9 o'clock sharp for a final review. He listened intently as I presented the concept: a floating festival park that would transform a neglected waterfront into a vibrant nexus of education, recreation, and ecological stewardship. He paused at each slide, offering constructive feedback on phrasing and pacing. "You've captured our family's ethos," he said when I finished. "Your vision is both practical and inspiring. Tomorrow you'll present this to the council." "Speak with conviction. This project can reshape public perception of sustainability in urban spaces." I nodded, gratitude and determination mingling in my gaze. "Thank you, Father. I'll make you proud." The next morning, I arrived at City Hall ahead of schedule, heart racing as I entered the council chamber, a grand room with vaulted ceilings, dark wood panelling, and a semicircle of seats occupied by council members and city planners. At the front, the mayor's dais rose, backed by a panoramic window overlooking the harbour. Masaru had arranged for me to present first. As I stepped to the podium, I felt the familiar rush of nerves transform into focused energy. I looked out at the expectant faces, some skeptical, some curious, and took a deep breath. "Good morning," I began, projecting my voice across the chamber. "My name is Levi Hayashi, apprentice at Hayashi and Company. Today, I'm honored to present our vision for the Tokyo Waterfront Festival Park, a floating promenade designed to celebrate and protect our marine environment." I guided them through the slides, the moored platforms, solar sail canopies, interactive tide pools and community lantern pavilions. With each image, I emphasized accessibility, education, and ecological harmony. I shared technical details, anchoring systems, water quality monitoring, renewable energy integration, then transitioned to experiential elements, art installations, live demonstrations, and student-led research pods. When I concluded, the chamber was silent for a heartbeat, then erupted in applause. The mayor, a dignified woman with silver hair, leaned forward. "Mr. Hayashi, your proposal is visionary. It melds functionality with community spirit and environmental stewardship. The council will vote on funding next week, but I foresee unanimous support." Relief and excitement flooded me. I nodded, heart soaring. "Thank you." "We look forward to bringing this vision to life with the city's partnership." As I stepped away from the podium, council members approached with questions and compliments. I answered each with clarity and gratitude, buoyed by the knowledge that my ideas had captivated civic leaders. Later, Masaru greeted me in the lobby, pride shining in his eyes. "You were brilliant," he said, enveloping me in a brief hug. "You've not only represented our firm, but also the ideals I've hoped to instill in you." I exhaled, the tension of the past 24 hours melting away. "I couldn't have done it without your support and the team's collaboration." He smiled, tapping his temple. "And your own resilience and creativity." "Now let's celebrate." He led me to a nearby cafe overlooking the harbor, where we toasted with matcha lattes as sunlight danced on the water. In that moment, I realized that my journey from the abandoned boy at Shinjuku Station to the young man poised to shape Tokyo's skyline had come full circle. I had found not only a home, but also a purpose to build, to protect, and to guide others toward a future defined by compassion and innovation. And with my father's unwavering belief, I knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, a brisk breeze carried the scent of pine and sea salt as I stepped onto the veranda of Rokugawa Heights. Winter's breath had kissed the garden leaves with frost, turning the world into a silvery tableau. I wrapped my scarf more tightly and descended the stone steps, heading toward the estate's private library. Today, I would begin my first independent community outreach, visiting the as-yet-empty Asahi redevelopment site to meet with local youth and introduce their role in shaping their neighborhood's future. Masaru joined me at the foot of the stairs, offering a thermos of hot barley tea. "Dress warmly," he advised, "and speak from the heart. These are your neighbors. You've earned their trust." His smile was encouraging, pride tempered by the solemnity of our venture. I nodded, clutching the thermos and the small stack of sketchbooks I'd prepared. Each contained excerpts of my grandfather's notes on urban harmony and a section for residence ideas and drawings. These physical touchstones would remind attendees that this project belonged to them, not merely to architects and developers. We traveled in silence to the former factory district, now fenced and under preliminary environmental remediation. The area's stark emptiness held a certain poignancy. Weathered warehouses stood like silent sentinels, their broken windows reflecting the pale sun. My breath condensed in the air as I stepped from the vehicle, boots crunching on gravel. "Welcome," I called, spotting a handful of teenagers bundled in parkas, members of the city's youth community council, gathered near a portable pavilion erected by our team. Their curious eyes reflected both hope and wariness. I took a steady breath. "Good morning," I began, lowering myself to a crouch so as not to tower over them. "I'm Levi Hayashi from Hayashi and Company, and I'm here to listen. This land will transform into your homes, your parks, your gathering places. But before we build, we need your voices." I opened the first sketchbook and displayed my grandfather's note. "A city is more than steel and concrete. It is the dreams of its people." I pointed to the blank pages. "This is for you. Write, draw, or sketch the spaces you imagine." One by one, the youths approached. Aya, a bright-eyed girl with pink mittens, sketched a bicycle path winding through cherry blossoms. Hiro, who wore a threadbare hoodie, drew a skate park under a solar canopy. May, shy at first, scribbled a community amphitheatre for open mic nights. I listened as they described their visions: a garden tended by seniors, a weekend farmers market, murals reflecting the neighborhood's history. Each idea breathed life into the barren site, weaving threads of identity and belonging. As they worked, I kept my words light but sincere. "Your ideas will guide our design. We'll integrate the bike path into the green corridors, the skate park near the community center, and the amphitheater by the restored waterway. This isn't a promise, it's our commitment." I placed a gentle hand on the pavilion post. "We're not only building structures, we're building memories and opportunities for everyone." The session lasted 2 hours, but it felt like minutes. When the final sketch was tucked into the book, Aya looked up and asked, "Will we get to see the finished plans?" Her voice wavered with hope. I smiled. "Absolutely. Next month we'll hold an open exhibition here. You'll see how your ideas shape the designs." Applause rippled through the small group, and I felt a surge of fulfillment. This, empowering others, was the truest measure of success. Before we departed, I invited them to sign a commemorative wood plank that would be installed at the project's ceremonial groundbreaking. Each signature marked a promise to belong, to contribute, to take pride in their shared space. As they pressed inked fingers to the grainy surface, I realized I was seeing the next generation's potential unfurling before me. Back at the estate, I shared the morning's experiences with Masaru. Over lunch of grilled salmon and pickled vegetables, I described Aya's bicycle path and Hiro's skate park. He nodded thoughtfully. "You engaged them with respect and purpose," he said. "Remember, community is more than consultation, it is collaboration. You've shown them their stake in this process." He sipped his tea. "I'm proud of how you've grown, Levi." I felt warmth bloom in my chest. "Thank you." It wasn't just me. I stood on the shoulders of your guidance and my grandfather's legacy. He offered a gentle smile. "And soon you'll stand on your own. But never forget, the strongest leaders remain students of their communities." That evening, as frost patterns formed on the windows, I returned to my study and reviewed the sketchbooks. I found Aya's blossoms dancing alongside Hiro's ramps, May's amphitheatre curving gracefully under imagined starlight. I compiled photographs of their sketches into a presentation titled Voices of Asahi and drafted invitations for the upcoming public exhibition. I paused at my desk lamp, letting the day's memories settle around me. The empty site had transformed, at least in spirit, into a tapestry of hopes and dreams. I realized that my journey, once defined by loss and rescue, now wove through the lives of others, nurturing belonging and co-creation. When Masaru knocked and entered with 2 steaming cups, I saved my work and offered him one. "They did wonderfully," I said. "I can't wait for the exhibition." He lifted his cup. "To the next chapter, where people's voices become brick and mortar, and where your vision becomes their reality." I clinked my cup against his, feeling a sense of purpose, as steady and enduring as the cedar beams overhead. In that shared moment, I understood that home was not a place but the collective heartbeat of a community, one I was privileged to help shape, one page, one plank, one shared dream at a time. The first flush of spring had barely warmed the air when I received an unexpected letter from the Sakura International Academy's headmistress, Madame Fujikawa. She invited me to deliver a commencement address at the Academy's annual scholarship ceremony, a gathering of students, faculty, and distinguished alumni. My chest tightened at the honor. Only the most promising students were asked to speak. For me, this invitation marked a full circle, from a frightened boy striving just to fit in to a young man whose voice carried weight and inspiration. On the morning of the ceremony, I stood before the full-length mirror in my study, adjusting the silver tie pin engraved with the school emblem. My tailored charcoal suit felt noble and reassuring. As I fastened the last button, Masaru entered, wearing a proud smile that warmed me more than the gentle sunlight filtering through the shoji screens. "Today," he said, "you speak not only for yourself, but for every student who finds themselves standing at a crossroads. Remember, your story matters because it shows how we can transform hardship into purpose." I nodded, pressing a hand to my chest as if to quell the fluttering nerves. "I'll do my best." He placed a firm hand on my shoulder. "That is enough." The drive to the academy felt surreal. Cherry blossoms fluttered along the avenue, thick petals carpeting the pathway like soft snow. I recognized classmates, some in graduation robes, smiling and greeting me as I passed. At the main hall, Madame Fujikawa waited at the entrance, resplendent in a pastel kimono adorned with embroidered cranes. She offered me a gracious nod. "Levi," she said, voice warm, "we are honored that you will address our graduates and scholarship recipients today." "Thank you, madam," I replied, bowing deeply. Inside, the auditorium buzzed with anticipation. Rows of graduates sat in their robes. Behind them, families and faculty filled the seats. The dais was framed by banners that read, "Sakura International Academy, nurturing tomorrow's leaders." The orchestra played a gentle prelude, and I felt every eye in the room. Hundreds of eyes settle on me when I approached the podium. I inhaled, recalling the boy who once trembled at the thought of speaking in class. Now I stood with confidence rooted in experience. The courtroom, the design studio, community pavilions, and the dojo. I glanced at the first row where Kai, Emiko, and the youth I'd met at Asahi sat beaming. I smiled, and a surge of calm washed over me. "Esteemed headmistress," I began, my voice carrying clearly through the hall. "Distinguished guests, proud families, and graduating students. Today marks not an ending, but the beginning of countless journeys. Each of you carries a story of challenge overcome, of dreams nurtured, of community uplifted." I paused, letting my words resonate. I too have a story. 15 months ago, I stood alone in a crowded station, abandoned by the person I trusted most. I felt unworthy, unseen, as though I were merely baggage on life's journey. Yet in that moment of despair, I reached out for help and found not empty hands but arms that lifted me, my father's, but also the arms of a community that believed in me. A ripple of nods and smiles spread through the audience. I continued. I found strength in education, support in mentors, and purpose in serving others, students who sketched their dreams on blank pages, community members who entrusted me with their visions, peers who welcomed me in clubs and classrooms. Each act of kindness transformed my fear into resolve and my isolation into connection. I looked out at the graduates. Today, you sit on the cusp of your own journeys. You will face uncertainty, perhaps even abandonment, not always from others, but from your own doubts. I urge you, do not accept that doubt as the final word. Seek out those who extend hands to guide you and become that guiding hand for others. My gaze swept the hall. In design studios, courtrooms, and dojo floors, I learned that true leadership blends compassion with conviction. It listens before it leads, it builds before it breaks, it uplifts the many rather than exalts the few. As you step forward into universities, careers, or community initiatives, carry this lesson with you, that our greatest achievements are not measured by monuments of stone or steel, but by the lives we touch and the hope we inspire. A hush fell. Then applause rose, a crescendo of gratitude and affirmation. I lowered my head in thanks, heart swelling with the realization that my words had reached beyond my own experience to touch the collective spirit of the academy. After the ceremony, students lingered to shake my hand, share their hopes, and encourage me in return. Kai clasped my shoulder. "That was incredible, Levi. You made us all believe in ourselves." Emiko pressed a folded note into my palm, her poem about resilience, inspired by my speech. I promised to treasure it always. As the sun set, I returned home to Rokugawa Heights, petals from the cherry trees drifting across the driveway. Masaru waited at the gate, eyes shining with pride. I handed him the note from Emiko and recounted moments from the speech and the ceremony. He embraced me, gentle and strong. "You've grown into a leader who uplifts others," he said. "Your journey has inspired countless hearts." I rested my head against his chest, the evening's peace settling around us like a benediction. In that moment, I understood that my story, once defined by abandonment, had become a legacy of compassion, strength, and shared purpose. And as the lanterns in the garden glow softly in the twilight, I knew with absolute certainty that the path ahead, though unwritten, would be illuminated by the countless lives I had the privilege to touch. Early the next morning, I awoke to the gentle chirp of sparrows and the distant toll of the temple bell. The air in my room smelled faintly of cedar and jasmine tea. remnants of last night's celebration, of my speech at Sakura Academy. As I stretched and untucked the silken comforter, a soft chime on my desk announced an incoming message, an email from Serena Nakamura, my mother. My heart fluttered uneasily. We had not spoken since the courthouse ruling, and our last encounter had ended with her fury at discovering her revoked claims. I hesitated before clicking the subject line, a request for reconciliation, fingers trembling with conflicting emotions. Taking a steadying breath, I opened it. Her letter was polite, almost sterile, expressing deep regret for her actions, acknowledging she had failed in her duties as a mother, and requesting a meeting to begin healing. She proposed dinner tonight at Yugiri Tea House, the same moonlit pavilion where my father and I had celebrated my progress. I read and reread her words, tasting their sincerity, or lack thereof, and felt the remnants of old wounds lurch in my chest. Below her plea lay a sentence that stung most. I wished to make amends and reclaim my place in your life. That phrase, casual yet weighty, reminded me of the day she'd abandoned me. I closed my eyes, recalling the hollow ache in Shinjuku Station when her heels had clicked away. I thought of the strength I'd found in my father's arms, in the court's vindication, in the community I'd helped build. I realized then that my life had moved forward without her, and I needed to decide whether to open the door she'd slammed or to leave it closed. I rose from bed and donned a simple dark sweater and jeans. I poured a cup of genmaicha and carried it to the balcony overlooking the cedar grove. The sunrise painted the sky in soft gold, as though urging me to clarity. I sipped, feeling warmth spread through me, and composed a reply. Mother, I have received your message. I appreciate your apology, and I understand that you regret your past decisions. However, my life has continued forward, rooted in love, respect, and hard-earned trust. At this time, I do not believe a meeting would be constructive for either of us. I wish you well in finding your own path toward healing. Please respect my decision. Levi, I hit send and exhaled, relief mingled with sadness. My mother's vision of reconciliation did not align with my journey toward wholeness. I would not abandon myself again. Later that morning, I found Masaru in the study, reviewing project reports. His gaze lifted as I entered, and he offered a gentle, expectant smile. Without preamble, I told him about the email and my response. His expression remained calm, but tender. You did exactly what you needed to do, he said, standing and walking to place a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Forgiveness is not a single act, but a process. You have forgiven her by freeing yourself from her influence. There is no shame in denying her request if it undermines your well-being. His words were a balm. Thank you, I whispered. A shiver of gratitude ran through me, grateful that I no longer needed her approval to define my worth. He nodded. Tonight, dinner with her would feel like old wounds reopening. Instead, let us honor your choice. If she arrives, I will meet her and convey your wishes. But I encourage you to continue this evening with your own family and community. I smiled, feeling the solid ground of his support beneath me. Yes, I will attend the poetry recital at Sakura Academy tonight, remember. Emiko Ito invited me to read her poem. He returned to his desk with a proud nod. Go share that stage. Your voice belongs where it is welcomed. That evening, I stepped into Sakura Academy's auditorium once more, this time as a guest reader at the poetry recital. The hall glowed with lantern light and rows of students, parents, and faculty. When my turn came, I walked to the podium with a quiet confidence that had been forged in every trial of the past year. Emiko's poem, An Elegy to Resilience, was a tribute not to blood ties, but to chosen bonds. I read each line slowly, letting the words ripple through the audience. As I finished, applause rose like blossoming petals. I bowed deeply, heart full, and returned to my seat alongside Kai and Daisuke. Their proud smiles affirmed that my place here was genuine and earned. After the recital, I strolled through the cherry tree courtyard, now strung with paper lanterns and soft music. My phone buzzed with a forwarded text from my father. Your mother is here. I've told her you are unavailable. She will leave soon. I smiled reassuringly. My mother's brief appearance would find no audience. Under the canopy of blossoms and lantern light, I realized how far I had come. No longer the child abandoned by fear. I was the young man who shaped spaces, uplifted communities, and honored his own boundaries. My mother's request for reconciliation was hers to resolve, but my story, rich with chosen family and self-authored purpose, would continue unbroken. I raised my head to the night sky, petals drifting down like blessings, and breathed in a future illuminated by my own choices. In that moment I understood fully my home was not behind me, nor was it in her shadow. It was here, among those who had truly loved me into being. The first light of dawn filtered through the bamboo groves surrounding Rokugawa Heights, casting slender shadows across my desk. I sat before the final draft of the Asahi Community Exhibition program, posters, banners, and a schedule for the opening event. Tomorrow, our public showcase would transform the fenced-off lot into a vibrant gallery of community ideas, design prototypes, and interactive stations. As I pinned the last poster to the corkboard, I felt the familiar hum of anticipation and a twinge of bitter-sweet nostalgia. Almost exactly 1 year ago I had arrived here as a frightened boy. Now I stood on the threshold of unveiling a vision that belonged to hundreds of voices. Masaru entered, carrying 2 steaming cups of hojicha. He offered one to me as he surveyed the vibrant materials. "Everything is ready," he murmured, pride and tenderness mingling in his gaze. "This exhibition is the culmination of your journey and the community's dreams. You've earned this moment." I took the cup, warmth seeping into my palms. "Thank you." I couldn't have done it alone. The memory of Aya's first sketch, Hero's skate park design, and May's amphitheater danced through my mind, each idea woven into the program's tapestry. He nodded. "Tomorrow, you will address the attendees. Speak from your heart, as you did at Sakura Academy and City Hall. This is your story, shared with everyone who helped write it." I closed my eyes and rehearsed my opening words. "Welcome to Voices of Asahi." My pulse quickened, but I felt steady, anchored by the knowledge that this event symbolized both an ending and a beginning. The following morning, a crisp breeze rattled the exhibition tent's canvas walls as community members, local dignitaries, students, and press gathered at the Asahi site. Bamboo lanterns flickered along the perimeter, and rows of easels displayed children's drawings, seniors' memoirs, and architectural renderings. Scaled models sat on tables, the floating promenade, the solar sail canopies, the tide pool stations, each accompanied by quotes from the youth who inspired them. I stepped onto the raised platform which overlooked the entire layout and took a deep breath. Masaru stood at my side, offering an encouraging nod. I surveyed the expectant faces. Aya, tousle-haired and bright-eyed. Hiro, hoodie replaced by a crisp school blazer. May, clutching her tablet with prideful certainty. Around them, families and neighbors chatted excitedly, taking selfies with the models. I tapped the microphone. "Good morning," I began, voice carrying across the lot. "Today we celebrate more than design. It's the celebration of community, creativity, and the power of a single idea to spark transformation." I paused, looking into the crowd. A year ago, I stood at Shinjuku Station, abandoned and uncertain. No one then could have told me that today I would stand here alongside you, unveiling a project born of your dreams. A hush settled. I continued, describing how each sketchbook page had guided the architects, how community feedback refined the plans, and how our collaboration had turned a derelict district into a canvas for shared hope. I invited Aya to unroll her bicycle path design, which was then projected onto a large screen. Cheers rose as her drawing morphed into a digital map overlaid on satellite imagery. Next, I called Hiro forward to demonstrate the virtual skatepark simulation, projected onto a touchscreen kiosk, while May explained her amphitheater's acoustic study. Each presenter spoke with confidence and passion, embodying the project's ethos that every voice matters. As the morning progressed, I led small tours. Groups meandered through the scaled models, interactive tide pool exhibits, and solar sail prototypes that harvested daylight. I guided them through the community art pavilion, where lanterns inscribed with conservation pledges drifted across a mirror-like pool, echoing the Lantern Festival vision Emiko Ito had suggested. At noon, I convened the final ceremony near the ceremonial groundbreaking marker, a carved stone engraved with our family crest and the words, "Voices of Asahi, Unity in Design." I addressed the crowd one last time. Let this marker remind us that progress is built on collaboration. We honor the past by shaping a future that belongs to us all. With a ceremonial spade, I turned the earth, followed by Masaru, community leaders and youth representatives, symbolizing our collective commitment. As the crowd applauded, and the scent of fresh earth mingled with the spring breeze, I looked up to find my mother among the attendees. Serena Nakamura stood at the back, arms folded, expression inscrutable. Her presence reminded me of the journey we'd shared and the distance I'd traveled. I felt no anger, only clarity that my path no longer depended on her steps. I caught her eye and offered a polite nod. She hesitated, then managed a slight bow before turning away. In that simple exchange, I acknowledged our shared blood, but affirmed that my home lay here, with this community, this city, and my father's unwavering love. As evening drew near, lanterns glowed along the perimeter, and attendees lingered to share memories and hopes. I walked among them, accepting thanks and listening to stories of renewed pride in their neighborhood. Each conversation wove another thread into the tapestry of Asahi's renaissance. When the last visitor departed and the site lay quiet under a lavender sky, I lingered beside the ceremonial marker. Masaru joined me, his silhouette outlined against the softly lit models. "You did it, Levi," he said quietly. "You turned abandonment into belonging, fear into action." I could not be more proud. I placed a hand on the marker, feeling the cool stone beneath my fingers. "We did it, Father. All of us." My gaze rose to the darkening horizon, dotted with lantern lights mirroring distant stars. "Thank you for believing in me from the moment you found me to this day." He placed his arm around my shoulders, and together we surveyed the transformed site, a living testament to community, creativity, and the enduring legacy of a father's love. In that moment, I understood fully that home is not a single place or person, but the countless hearts that shape us, the shared dreams that guide us, and the unbreakable spirit that carries us forward, always together, always free.